Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Collider Academy Awards 2016 pre-show. The Oscars are going to be on in an hour and a half. As you can see, there's an empty chair over here. That's for John Campia. He's running a little late, so we decided to start without him. We're going to first talk a little about the show first, and then we're going to start with kind of the smaller categories and then build our way up to the Best Picture. So let's just start talking about the show. What are we anticipating? We have... there's the whole Oscars So White controversy. We have Chris Rock hosting it. Mark Ellis as a comedian. Are you looking forward to Chris Rock tackling this?
I cannot wait to see Chris Rock's opening monologue. I actually had the pleasure of being at the Comedy Store this week, doing a set, then getting off stage and watching him work out his Oscar material. And I can tell you guys, it's going to be a little controversial. I thought it was hysterical. I don't know how it's going to play in the room because, look, just as a comic telling jokes, the Oscars is one of the worst crowds you'll ever come across because everybody's so gussied up, they're nervous, just their necks are tight, they're wearing tight clothing, it's cold in there, it's not a good place to get laughs. And we saw the last time Chris Rock hosted, his monologue didn't go over as well as it did when I was watching him work it out at the Comedy Store. So here, he's probably going to talk about the Oscars So White controversy, the boycotts. I think he's going to make fun of Leo a little bit. I think he'll make fun of Rocky a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see how this stuff plays in the room. But either way, I cannot wait to see what that dude says.
And joining us all the way from New York, we have Perry. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I got loose collar, nice warm coat. I'm ready for his jokes. I'm quite excited for that. I think he's the perfect person to be hosting this, but I just kind of wish that the conversation wasn't so much like Oscars So White, as in focusing on the Oscars. Like, why can't we use this opportunity to focus on what the real problem is, which starts at the very beginning, with studios commissioning certain people to write certain types of scripts. So that's a bit of a bummer, but I think if anything, you know what we could do tonight? Every single time someone says boycott or diversity, let's all take a shot or something.
There's a
good drinking game in this situation.
Mark, you already have had a preview of Chris Rock's monologue. How drunk are we going to get then?
Oh, we're going to be having a lot of blueberry vodka.
Look who decided to show up.
Speaking of Oscars So White, it's Canada's own John Campia.
Thanks for joining us, John. So we just started. We're just talking about. We haven't even gotten to the categories yet. We're going to start with the smaller categories first and build our way up to Best Picture.
There are no small categories, Dennis.
Okay.
Just to let you know.
Yeah. But we're just talking about the Oscars in general. What are you anticipating, especially with Chris Rock hosting and the Oscars So White controversy?
Rock is going to play to it. He has to play to it. You absolutely have to, and he's going to be hilarious at it. It's going to be great. But I honestly don't think there's going to be too much of a theme throughout the night. I think Rock is going to make some incredibly funny joke about it off the beginning, break the ice with it, get the elephant out of the room, and then they'll just move on with the rest of the ceremony. That's what I think, at any rate. We'll see. He might have a whole line of jokes lined up for the rest of the night. I mean, I just don't know yet, but we'll see.
Okay, all right. So we're going to start off with some of the smaller categories. Let's start off with the first one, Best Visual Effects. We have Ex Machina, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Star Wars The Force Awakens. Perry, which one do you think should win and which one will actually win?
I want to say I think Star Wars should win, just because if it's in the game at all, I'm so excited about that movie that I want it to take something. But I think this is probably one of the toughest categories to predict. It's definitely either going to be Star Wars, The Revenant, or Mad Max. But then again, I also just did an interview with one of the VFX guys on Ex Machina, and what they went through to get that robotic body to kind of meld with her physical form and just like natural human movement. Yeah. I mean, what they accomplished is pretty incredible and so outside the box too. So I almost want them to win for that reason, but I don't think it's happening. I'm going with The Revenant.
And all these other movies had such huge budgets to work with. Ex Machina did not have that luxury, and to still make it so believable and realistic looking, I want to kind of give it to Ex Machina, but I'm going to say Star Wars should win. I don't think that Star Wars will win, though, John. I think that Mad Max is going to be one of those movies that takes a lot of the smaller categories, because I have a feeling that Miller might get locked out over Inarritu, and I think that Mad Max Fury Road might get passed up as far as some of the bigger categories, quote-unquote bigger. So I think this is the one that Mad Max is going to take.
John?
Like you guys, I think Star Wars The Force Awakens should win. And it's funny because out of the categories it's nominated for, I don't think visual effects is its best chance of winning. I think that lies in the sound categories, but we'll get there a little bit later. I think Star Wars The Force Awakens should win. Number one, because the visual effects are astounding and they're amazing and all that kind of stuff. But also when you compare them to the other nominees, it's on the same par of excellence, just a lot more of it too. So it beats them in quality, and I think it beats them in quantity. However, I don't know that it will win, and I think the one that is probably going to upset it is actually Ex Machina. I think it is a darling of these Oscar voters. This movie has been a darling for critics and the Academy and stuff like that. When you look at the film, it's so flawlessly seamless. I mean, it's breathtakingly beautiful. Not an awful lot of visual effects, but the ones that are there. So I would actually think it's going to win over The Revenant and Star Wars.
Just remember this, though, Dennis, too, is that they were able to take BB-8 and turn it from a droid into a birthday cake. That is no easy task.
I personally think my pick is Mad Max Fury Road. I think it's gonna win, and I don't know if I said it should win because all these nominees are great, but Mad Max, if you incorporate, because a lot of times, do you think that people knowing that a lot of the stuff is practical and then the category technically being visual effects, do you think that's going to hurt it in that regard?
I don't think so, because really, look, for all the press that the practical effects of that Mad Max Fury Road got, there's an awful lot of digital effects in that movie. At the same time, it is a beautiful example of the balance of practical effects and visual effects, something that probably J.J. Abrams, in seeing what Miller was doing, is drawing some inspiration from as well. So, no, I don't think it's going to hurt it at all. I think it might actually help its chances.
That crossed my mind, though, because how many people who are actually voting for this award even know the difference between practical and special effects? VFX and special
Well, that was
effects.
also a thing that was huge when Star Wars came out, is, they're using practical effects. And most of it was obviously CGI, but, I mean, it wasn't obviously looking, but we know that a lot of those shots are just not practical and you can't pull those off. The fact that everybody watches Mad Max and is like, this is all realistic, I think that helps its chances, too.
I thought, funny, looking down this list, this is a coin toss for me, because I think the only one that I think I would have a problem winning would be The Martian. And I love The Martian. The effects look great. But any of those other four, they announce any of those four films, I'm like, good job. I have no complaints.
Yeah, I'm fine with any 5 winning. All right, on to the next category. We got Best Animated Feature. Anomalisa, Boy in the World, Inside Out, Shaun the Sheep, When Marnie Was There. Is there any doubt which movie is going to be winning this category?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Don't sell Anomalisa short. It is one of those films that it's kind of like, what was the black and white silent film from a couple of years ago?
The Artist.
Jean
The Artist.
Dujardin. Yes, yeah. The Artist. It's kind of has an artist feel to it that it's kind of the darling right now. I think it poses a real threat to Inside Out. Now, Inside Out, I still think if I had to put my money on it, Inside Out wins. It should win. It's probably in my top 5 favorite films of the year. I think it should win absolutely, but do not count out this.
What
this
percentage
film.
chance are you giving
I'm
Inside
giving Inside Out a 60% chance. I'm giving Anomalisa a 35% chance, and any of the others combined 5%.
I'm giving Inside Out more of like a 90% chance.
I hope you're right.
Perry, what do you think?
I think I'm with you on that one. Also, just because Inside Out versus Anomalisa has a much wider appeal and just makes everybody happy. So, like, when I walked out of that movie, I couldn't stop talking about it because I had such a smile on my face,
Me
and
too.
I wanted people to experience that and feel what I felt seeing that movie. And even though Anomalisa is a fantastic film and the voice performances in that are incredible, I think Tom Noonan should be getting more like recognition for what he did in that movie than anything. But that one kind of didn't leave me with that same good feeling where I felt the need to go like champion the movie to everybody
I agree.
after.
Completely agree.
And I think Anomalisa would be a great underdog story to upset this huge Pixar juggernaut. I think that obviously Inside Out would be Tyson. Anomalisa could be Buster Douglas, but I think that it's going to stick with Inside Out. Shaun the Sheep, though, you talk about The Artist. That's a silent movie. The damn sheep doesn't talk throughout the
No
whole
dialogue.
movie. And it still apparently charmed the pants off everyone who saw it. So I think that's got an outside chance. You got to go with Inside Out.
A little commentary here. I am a little sad that the Charlie Brown movie didn't get nominated.
Peanuts? Yeah.
I adored Shaun the Sheep. I did. I would have put Peanuts above Shaun the Sheep. I just had that big the smile you're talking about. I just had that grin on my face the
It's
whole way
almost like
through.
people forgot about that movie.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I really enjoyed myself with that one as well and captured the original spirit of the comic strip.
Absolutely.
All right, on to the next one. We have Best Original Score. We have Bridge of Spies, Carol, The Hateful Eight, Sicario, and Star Wars The Force Awakens. Mark, which is your pick to win it all?
I think The Hateful Eight is the one that's going to win. Look, you guys know how much I love Star Wars and John Williams. I love the new score, what that brought. It brought a new, but yet old at the same time feel to The Force Awakens. But The Hateful Eight, come on, you got to give it to anyone. After all these years, that he deserves some sort of lifetime achievement. I think The Hateful Eight is the one that gets it for him.
John?
Hateful Eight's going to win. The one I think should win is actually Bridge of Spies. The score to that movie is actually, to me, the highlight of the film. It's just incredibly done. If you look at a score, and the purpose of a score is to enhance and enrich the scenes that the music is a part of, I think Bridge of Spies did that better than any other film this year. But I think you're absolutely right. I think Hateful Eight, it's going to take it.
See, the way that you feel about Bridge of Spies is the way I felt about Hateful Eight. I think it's the score is the highlight of the movie. I like Hateful Eight, but I didn't love it like everyone else. But the score is amazing. Ennio Morricone, it's so haunting, and every time I think about the Hateful Eight, I think of that score. So I think it's gonna win, and it should win. Perry?
I think I agree with all of you. Hateful Eight will win, and I think it should win too. But I liked the Bridge of Spies score quite a bit. But Hateful Eight, especially with the overture in the beginning, when you're just sitting there, and it does enhance all of the scenes in the movie. But when you're just sitting there, kind of soaking in a score like that, it's bound to stick with you.
And let's take the opening score of my two top contenders would be Star Wars and Hateful Eight, right? Because they both just so lock you into the movie right off the bat. But Star Wars, you don't want to say it cheats, but we know so many of these scores that we feel so familiar with that music. This is while the Morricone it sounded a lot like some of his other movies as far back as the 60s. It was a totally new score, so I think that would be the tiebreaker for Hateful Eight.
You know what's missing on this list for me is Mad Max Fury Road. The Junkie XL soundtrack, that one sticks in my mind. I wish that one had gotten nominated as well.
For no other reason, because then they could have had the guitar player on stage at the Oscars.
All right, let's move on to the next category. We have Best Cinematography, Carol, The Hateful Eight, Mad Max Fury Road, The Revenant, and Sicario. Perry, let's start with you. Which one should win and which one will win?
This one makes me sad because poor Roger Deakins. I mean, come on. He deserves an award so much, but it's not happening tonight. It's going to be Chibo all the way for The Revenant. But, The Revenant is a gorgeous movie, clearly, but the one that sticks with me in terms of remembering something for the visuals is definitely Sicario. Some of those shots where they're going in on the raid, that I'll never forget for kind of years to come. But how many nominations? What?
He says 13 or 14.
That's incredible. I mean, he deserves to be honored for his work as a body of work, if not just for this movie.
Mark?
It's so weird to see the cinematography for The Hateful Eight and Sicario and know that they're battling for third place, because I think it's either Mad Max or it's going to be The Revenant. It's going to come down to the wire. The fact that The Revenant was shot in all natural daylight, except for maybe one scene. Then you also look at Mad Max, where he gave a 73-year-old guy a bunch of money and took him out to the desert, and he pulled that off with those shots. So the way both of those movies composed their takes was just so mind-blowing to see, and it totally wrapped you up in what the action was. I do think The Revenant is going to take it in overtime.
John?
I went to a cinematography series of lectures once, and one of the things one of the speakers said is the hallmark of great cinematography is the cinematographer who can leverage the natural environments or the artificial environments to make them as a part of the composition, right? And when you talk about it in those terms, both Mad Max and The Revenant did such a spectacular job of that in two very different ways. I think it's going to be The Revenant, and I think I would probably cast my vote for The Revenant too. So I think The Revenant's going to take it.
I think The Revenant is going to win. I would be fine with The Revenant, Sicario, or Mad Max winning. I think all three of those are gorgeous films. And yeah, Roger Deakins and Sicario, it's one of those cases where it's like you wish he would get one, but I think it's going to be Emmanuel Lubezki's year again. He's going to be, for the third time in a row, another Oscar on his mantle.
Not a bad day.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next category. We have Best Adapted Screenplay. The Big Short, Brooklyn, Carol, The Martian, and Room. Perry, why don't we start with you?
Best Adapted. I don't think anything but The Big Short has a shot. That one's going to get it no matter what. But if I had my pick, it would be Room all the way, because that right there is one of the best book-to-film adaptations I have ever seen. She so clearly knew how to take that story and serve two mediums with it. And I think I brought this up the last time I was on the show when we were talking about the nominations. The best part about that movie and that book is that you can watch them one before the other. It doesn't matter. No matter what, you just experience something more by adding one on top of the other. So I highly recommend watching Room and then reading the book, or vice versa. Either way, it's going to work. I don't think she has a shot, though, sadly.
I haven't read The Room, but someone told me that the book version ends where kind of the halfway point of the movie begins.
I don't
Is
know.
that true?
I don't know if that's no. I don't think that's true.
Okay.
Also, because if anybody who's seen Room looks at that and imagines a halfway point, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but I think that halfway point, I mean, there's so much more story to it, where that second half of the movie is almost like the movie, and it's kind of what you're supposed to take from what happens at the beginning. But the book covers all the
Okay.
same things. The book takes out a few characters that I think are very important to the book, but in the movie version, she kind of incorporates those personalities into other characters where you get the same points across.
John, who do you think is going to win this one?
I think it's going to be Big Short. I think that's what's going to be. My vote would probably be an outside vote, and that's The Martian. I mean, if when you read The Martian, one of the things that will struck a lot of people is this is an unfilmable book. You cannot turn this story into a movie, and they did, and they made it one of the best films of the year. How much of that was the script? How much of that was Ridley Scott? I'm not totally sure, but the way they adapted that story to the big screen and made it one of the most entertaining and enthralling movies of the year to me. One guy in a desert landscape, and they made it, enthralling. So that was incredible. But you can't sell short the job they did on The Big Short. I mean, there's an incredible pace to the film. At the same time, you feel like you're falling 5 steps behind, and then before you know it, you're caught right back up again. And the way it's structured and unfolds, they did an incredible job with it. So I think it's probably going to be The Big Short. My vote would have been The Martian, though.
Well, I won't be able to read any of these books until I finish The Pride, which you can get on Amazon right now.
Good plug.
Who wrote that again?
It's some guy named John something or other. You can check it out on wherever online books are sold. The Big Short is the one that I think is going to take it, and I think it's the one that should take it, because echoing your sentiments, John, who is a great author, is that the way that they combine all that source material into a movie that was actually palatable and you could understand the density of the situation going on. The Martian, I give it all the credit in the world for being able to incorporate all that humor into a movie where you didn't know if it was going to translate. And something, I do an Irish radio station, I call in every so often, and I was telling them this week, look, I would love to get Brooklyn something because it deserves some sort of recognition. I just don't think with adapted screenplay, it is The Big Short's year to get this.
Yeah, I'm wondering if people are going to gloss over Brooklyn. It's something like where it's a story on paper that actually doesn't sound that interesting or something new, but they were able to take that and make it something I actually was engaged in. And so whoever adapted that, they made it such a bigger and better than what I thought.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. We have Best Original Screenplay, Bridge of Spies, Ex Machina, Inside Out, Spotlight, and Straight Outta Compton. John, which one do you think should win and which one will win?
This is going to be one of the very few years that the picture I am picking to win Best Picture, I'm not picking in its screenplay category. Spotlight will win. Spotlight will win. I totally believe the best original screenplay this year was Inside Out, though. And I think it's going to get overlooked because it's animated and because it's what it is. But upon my 5th and 6th viewings of this movie, the film is genius. It's just absolutely brilliantly written. So if it was my vote, it would be Inside Out. But Spotlight, who is my pick to win Best Picture, spoiler, getting ahead of myself a bit, but it's probably going to win Best Original Screenplay.
Mark?
I think it takes Best Original Screenplay as well. I'd love to see Straight Outta Compton get something. I thought Inside Out was a nice screenplay. I don't think it's quite deserving of the Oscar for this. So yeah, Spotlight would have to be the one because, like you said, John, it was positioned early in award season to be the darling of the Academy for the Oscars, and now we haven't talked about it as much. But I think tonight it's going to be once again Spotlight is going to get thrust into the spotlight by winning not just original screenplay but a host of other awards.
Perry?
I am 110% with you.
Yes.
Spotlight's going to win, but I really would like to see Inside Out take it because, you remember that first clip they released where it's just them sitting at the dinner table? I watched that and I'm like, this is a really cute idea, but how do you make that into a full feature? And wow, did they exceed my expectations. And they do it in a way where all those crazy things, like how ridiculous is it that the inside of your mind could look like that? But it makes you want to stand in her shoes and figure out what your mind world would look like, what your personality islands would be. And that to me is something special that I didn't think they could achieve, and I wish that they could be honored for that. But they'll get Best Animated, so hey.
Yeah, they'll get one.
I mean, look, you're right. They incorporated 5 emotions into Inside Out, whereas at the end of Spotlight, it was pretty much just Lewis Black driving the ship in everybody's mind.
What about sadness? It's pretty sad and
A little
depressing.
sad,
Yeah,
too.
a little Lewis
sad.
Black.
I think Spotlight will win, and I think it should win. I think it was able to take a story that was a little heavy and make it at least compelling and interesting, also while not getting too, I don't know, like into the vein of too hokey or cliche. And it's, it's a difficult subject matter. All right, on to the next one. We've got Best Supporting Actress: Jennifer Jason Leigh in The Hateful Eight, Rooney Mara, Carol, Rachel McAdams, Spotlight, Alicia Vikander, The Danish Girl, Kate Winslet, Steve Jobs. Perry?
I think Alicia Vikander's going to win for Ex Machina. Oh no, the Danish Girl.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just kidding. She's going to win for the Danish Girl. I want her to win for. I want her to win for Ex Machina. Like it's right there. I think a lot of people are going to look at this and be like, yeah, she deserves it for the Danish Girl, but let's also not forget her performance in that. And it's kind of, a 1-2 punch. So I think that's definitely going to push her beyond most others.
Mark?
It's weird because I want to see the human being Jennifer Jason Leigh win the statue. I just it was such a great comeback story for her this year to be nominated for an Academy Award. I just don't think that her performance warranted it as much as either Alicia Vikander or Rooney Mara. And it's a weird situation where it's like Rooney Mara, the fact that she was so in Carol, she almost could have gotten a lead actress nomination.
And some
in
awards,
that movie.
and some awards bodies did put her in the lead
She
actress
did,
category.
yeah. And I think in an odd way that's going to hurt her in this, where
agree.
I think that Alicia Vikander was the penultimate as far as performance, but when you look at what she did in The Danish Girl, and I think you're right, Perry. Sometimes when the Academy is trying to do like a tiebreaker, maybe they'll go to outside movies. Like, what else did you do for me this year? She was also great in Ex Machina, so I think it's Vikander's award.
Well, do you think Jennifer Jason Leigh, do you think the fact that The Hateful Eight wasn't as, nominated and praised as, like, let's say, like Quentin Tarantino's last film, Django, do you think that hurt her at all, or was it strictly just the performance?
I absolutely think that did. I think that The Hateful Eight coming out and having all this hype behind it, not just with the performance of her, but also, we filmed it in this 70 millimeter and it's got this great score by Ennio Morricone and all these things that just didn't land with the audiences as far as a popularity contest the way that Quentin Tarantino hoped it might. I think that does hurt it a little bit, but you take nothing away from Alicia Vikander. I think she deserves this award.
John?
Alicia Vikander is going to win, and normally I don't like the notion that the Academy should not give awards based on body of work, whether it's a career body of work, unless it's like unless it's a lifetime achievement award or something, nor that year's body of work. But I think it's going to be impossible to ignore the fact that Alicia did 2 performances this year that each could have won this year. If she was being nominated for Ex Machina this year, I would say she's the favorite to win. She's nominated for The Danish Girl. I believe she is the favorite to win. I believe she's going to win this. I believe there are going to be Academy voters that look at this and say, this is a year where she could have won for multiple roles. We got to give it to her. The one person I think is being overlooked in this how do you ever say that Kate Winslet is being overlooked? But what Kate Winslet did in Jobs, the only reason I believe we're not talking about it more is because Michael Fassbender just crushed it out of the park with it. So a lot of people naturally talking about the titular character with him, but I thought Kate Winslet was brilliant. But I would give it to Alicia, and I do believe Alicia's going to win.
Do you think that we're just so spoiled with Kate Winslet that we're like,
Yes.
of course she's great, but look at all these other new actresses that we get to celebrate. I think a little bit of that plays into it.
I
Having said
agree.
that, I would still give it to Vikander.
She did win the Golden Globe for her performance. I think Alicia Vikander is going to win and should win, also because of what you guys are talking about. That could have been a leading role. It's much like in the year The Fighter when they put Christian Bale in the Best Supporting Actor, and he won, where they took someone that was basically a co-lead and put him down to the supporting, and I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with her.
It's almost like the reverse with Brie Larson, too. If anything, I thought Jacob Tremblay was the lead in that movie, but, you assess their possibilities in an Oscar campaign, and, she could, we'll get to that, but she could clearly win that, whereas maybe she wouldn't do as well in the sporting character.
And going back to the one about Christian Bale, it was very specific. They did not run him that year for Best Lead Actor specifically because they knew he had no chance. The King's Speech.
Colin Firth?
Yeah, Colin Firth was not going to lose that year. There was no way he was going to lose that year. They knew it. And I can't help but wonder if there was a little bit of that this year. Because I think you're right. I think if Alicia this year was listed in the Best Lead Actor category, I believe there's an argument that she had a chance of winning that one too. So I don't know. We'll see.
All right, before we move on to the next one, I want to let you guys know that during the actual show, and actually right now, some of Ashley and I think Natasha and Wendy and stuff, they're watching the red carpet and they're sending out videos on Instagram. Find us at Collider Video on Instagram and check that out. And that's where we're going to be after
all night.
Yeah, after we do this pre-show, we're going to watch the Oscars. We're going to be doing videos in between. And then also, after that, we're going to do our post-show. Can't give you a time because we don't know when it's actually going to be
guys.
over.
Wrap it up.
That one will be a little more, a little more less formal.
Yeah, but sign up right now. Follow Collider Video on Instagram right now. We're going to be putting up a lot of like short videos throughout the night, so follow along with us.
All right, now moving on to Best Supporting Actor. We have Christian Bale, The Big Short, Tom Hardy, The Revenant, Mark Ruffalo, Spotlight, Mark Rylance, Bridge of Spies, Sylvester Stallone, Creed. All right, John, who's your personal pick, and who do you think is actually going to win?
I have my personal pick has swung 4 different times. At one point, I was like, I don't know if Leonardo DiCaprio can win this year because I'm not even sure he was the best performer in The Revenant because Tom Hardy was so good in it. But then I looked at Christian Bale in The Big Short. He was outstanding in that. Then you look at Mark Ruffalo and what he did in Spotlight, which is incredible. Sylvester Stallone shocked the world with his performance in Creed. And I think Mark Rylance did a very, very good job in Bridge of Spies, but he's probably the one that hasn't had my votes. So I've gone back and forth between 4. Will win, should win. Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo will shock the world tonight, and he will actually...
So the Incredible Hulk will be winning
The
tonight.
Incredible Hulk will win Best Supporting Actor.
Mark?
I heard from so many people who saw The Revenant. Like, my mom called me. She didn't like the movie that much, but she said that Leo was fine. She expected Leo. She knew what she would get into that. Who was the other guy? He was great in The Revenant, and I've heard that from a lot of people that Tom Hardy stole that movie from Leo, the guy who ate nothing but bear liver for a month or whatever he did to get in shape for that movie. So Tom Hardy has an excellent chance to win this. However, yesterday, when I was in Philadelphia, I did not wait in line for half an hour to take a picture under a statue of Tom Hardy. I waited for half an hour to take a picture under the Rocky statue. That's who's winning the award in 2016. We're giving it to Rocky Balboa, a character who was created in 1976, ladies and gentlemen. He's taking it tonight, and I hope he references the Yo Adrian line in his acceptance speech. He should win, and he's going to win.
When they make that statue of Tom Hardy as Bane, are you going to be taking a picture of that underneath that one?
I will do no such thing for The Dark Knight Rises.
Okay.
I actually might take a picture onto that. But I think that, again, I like Tom Hardy a lot. And that's how I walked away from The Revenant. I walked away thinking, Leo's obviously going to do exactly what he's doing now, but I think Tom Hardy should get it. He did kind of steal the movie from Leo a little. But the thing with Sylvester Stallone is it's kind of what you brought up before about someone winning an award for their body of work. And his story right now, if he takes this, is just too good to be true.
It's incredible.
It is such a wonderful, heartwarming story, and I love it, and I can get behind that. But at the same time, let's not forget that his performance in this movie was actually incredible.
Yeah.
He somehow managed to channel everything about Rocky we knew and love while also taking him a step further. So if he wins tonight, I think he 110% deserves it, not just because of how many years he's played this character and how he's crawled his way into all of our hearts with him, but because he actually earned it.
For me, this may be the most stacked category out of the whole awards tonight.
It's a tough category.
It is, it's filled with talented people, and I wouldn't be surprised if any of them won, but I think Mark Rylance is actually going to win this one. And
That's how stacked this is. We're all over the place on this.
I mean, he's not my personal pick, but I just feel like the momentum is in his favor. I actually think it's, I would pick either Tom Hardy or Sylvester Stallone because I feel like both of them are so essential to what made both of those movies so great. And the performances, Stallone, that is such a fantastic story. I think people might be voting with their hearts and casting Stallone for that one.
It was weird to think about Bridge of Spies and how it's a Spielberg movie and Tom Hanks stars in it. And the best part about that movie to me was the performance of Mark Rylance because it gave the movie such weight where we're not just going in as an American hating this guy. It's like you actually sympathize with this character who we should not want to have anything to do with. It was an incredible job by him, and it was also very nice writing of his role, but I want to give it to him, but in a year where Rocky's nominated, it just ain't going to happen.
All right, let's move on to the next category. Best Actress, Cate Blanchett for Carol, Brie Larson, Room, Jennifer Lawrence, Joy, Charlotte Rampling, 45 years. Saoirse Ronan, Brooklyn. All right, Perry, which one is your pick and which one should win?
Guess what my pick is. Guess what I think will win and what I want to win. It is Brie Larson all the way. I could not be more excited for her because I think she deserves some consideration for Short Term 12. What was it, 2 years ago? But maybe the time that movie came out and how big of a studio of a distributor was behind it,
Right.
that probably killed her chances. But I am beyond thrilled that she is finally getting that chance in the spotlight, and we are recognizing how talented she is because she's not some newcomer that just jumped into a movie and got lucky. She's been around for years and years, delivering quality performances in everything she's in, no matter what kind of movie it is. So I am so excited for Brie Larson. This is probably the person that I'm most excited for, actually.
Yeah, I think she should win and she will win. Isn't Cate Blanchett now kind of like the new Meryl Streep? Almost anything that she does, she's going to get nominated for. I liked her in that, but Saoirse Ronan is someone that I think is kind of underrated for her performance in Brooklyn, what she pulled off in that one. But I think it's Brie Larson all the way. Mark?
You could say the same thing for Jennifer Lawrence as far as the Meryl Streep thing, where it's like you wake up,
Yeah.
you're in a movie, hey, here's your Oscar nomination. I don't think she has a chance in hell of winning. I think that Ronan could be this year's Chiwetel Ejiofor, and what I mean by that is that by the end of the night, I will learn how to pronounce her first name. I don't think she's winning it. I think it is Brie Larson's year. She should win, and she will win.
I think the question is, can you spell it?
Saorise.
Oh, you fool.
Yeah.
No.
That's right. No.
No,
you
I
should
flipped
just
it.
get you a couple hours. You got closer than I
damn.
would.
So
You
rusty.
got way
since-
closer than I would have. I mean, is it bad that I still kind of think of Brie Larson a little bit? It's like, oh, that girl from 21 Jump Street? Because I loved her in that. I thought she was awesome. No, it is so good to see her get the recognition that she is getting, and she so richly deserves it. And it was so nice seeing her get a vehicle that she could really showcase it, because that is a juicy role. I mean, that is all about the acting in that film, and she elevated it to such a level. I am going to go against the trend here, though. I think Cate Blanchett was like goddess-like in Carol. I thought she was deity level in Carol. I know a lot of people don't share that sentiment, but I thought it was maybe one of the 2 or 3 best performances she's ever given in her life. And I didn't even like the movie that much, which is weird when you think about it that way, but the performances really carried it. So I am, by ever so slight margin, should win, I'll say Cate Blanchett, and by an ever so slight margin, I'm going to say will win as Cate Blanchett. I think she's going to be the dark horse there.
Wow.
And then with Jennifer Lawrence, back to like with what I was talking about with Jennifer Jason Leigh, do you think because Joy was not as praised, critically received well, that's another reason why Jennifer Lawrence isn't being in that conversation? Or
I
is
don't
it
think
just
that's-
or it's just her performance?
That's not the reason. I think the reason is the movie as a whole. Like, no matter how good she was in that movie, what was happening around her, everything about that movie, that didn't serve her performance in a way that makes you walk away from that movie and say, this is one of the best performances of the year, regardless of the work she delivered, which I think she's obviously the best part of that movie.
Yeah, she was great in Joy. Don't get me wrong. I thought she was phenomenal. I've never heard the real woman speak, so I'm not sure how the accent actually played out in real life versus what she was doing with it. But yeah, she was great in that movie. It wasn't the best performance this year.
You know, and I will differ from you guys a little bit. I thought Jennifer Lawrence was very good, but I did not think it deserved to be nominated this year. And that says something about how good of an actress she is when you say, I don't even think it was in her top 5 best performances, but wow, she was still really good in it. And that's her bottom level, is really good. But I thought she was really good in it. So I think a little bit of the fact that Joy wasn't very well received probably plays into it a little bit. But to be honest, I was a little bit surprised that she ended up getting a nomination at all.
All right, let's move on to Best Actor. Bryan Cranston for Trumbo, Matt Damon, The Martian, Leonardo DiCaprio, The Revenant, Michael Fassbender, Steve Jobs, Eddie Redmayne, The Danish Girl. Is anyone seen anything else besides Leonardo DiCaprio taking this Oscar?
You know, Dennis, one of my first ever appearances way back in AMC Movie Talk in the early 1920s, we saw that first snapshot of The Revenant, and right off the bat, John Campy and I said, this dude is winning the Oscar for this movie, and now, 39 years later, it's going to come true tonight. Leo, don't worry, the kid from Growing Pains is finally getting his Oscar. My mom thought he should have won it for Titanic. I didn't think that, and I haven't thought that he should ever win it in a year he's been nominated, but this year's different. He's taking home the big prize.
John?
This is what's so special about the Oscars, all right? I think there are a lot of years that the performance Eddie Redmayne gave for The Danish Girl and the performance that Matt Damon gave for The Martian could have won the Oscar for Best for best performance by a lead actor. I think there are years you could have dropped those performances where they would have won, but this ain't the year. It's a 2-horse race. It's Leo DiCaprio. Now, you can forgive your mom and people like me initially who said, like, hey, he was outacted by another dude in the same movie because, you know, Leo DiCaprio didn't have a lot of his scenes playing off other characters. So he acted that whole movie with his eyes and his face and with raw fish and with horse carcasses and with freezing Canadian winter water and all that kind of stuff. What Leo DiCaprio did in The Revenant is a showcase of just how good this guy is. But do not count out Michael Fassbender for Jobs. What he did with Jobs, I think very well could spoil the Leonardo DiCaprio party this year. It really could. He had a lot of momentum early on, Michael Fassbender. He won a lot of the early awards stuff that was going out over Leo. Last couple of ones, Leo's been winning them. Leo's got the momentum. To me, it's a coin flip right now. It is an absolute coin flip, and I cannot say which of the two that I think should. It should be one of those two. I mean, all due respect to Bryan Cranston, who was spectacular in Trumbo, and the other guys we mentioned, but it's Michael Fassbender and Leonardo DiCaprio, and I cannot call it between the two of them. I'm stuck.
For me, I think Leonardo DiCaprio is definitely winning. I think the odds on it are really, really high.
I think they're like 3.5 to 1 or 4 to 1
something
right
like
now.
that.
Yeah,
One of my
huge.
friends like bet a ton of money to win very little money on this. I was like, that's high risk with very little reward. My favorite performance actually out of this list is actually Michael Fassbender with Steve Jobs. But I think Leonardo DiCaprio was pretty close and really up there, and all the momentum's on his side.
Right now, yeah, momentum's the key word.
We haven't really
here,
heard much from any of the other nominees in terms of winning other from other award shows. Perry, what do you think?
I want him to win, and he is going to win. It's Leonardo DiCaprio all the way. And that's coming from someone who just said that Tom Hardy stole the movie from him. So I think, that just speaks to how highly I think of Tom Hardy in that movie. But I think both of them are fantastic. I think he deserves this. And I think that Fox, what was the distributor on that? Was it Fox?
Went from Sony to someone else.
Well, whoever distributed
It was Fox,
I think
yeah.
they should have sent out some swag gifts that were fleece blankets with a horse on the outside so I can wrap myself in it like Leo. If they had sent me that and I was an Academy member, I would have voted for that.
Let me ask you guys something, though, because so many times, and particularly with the Best Actor, Best Actress, we look at not just the performance, but we also look at what that person went through physically, emotionally, during their time on set. Do you think that part of the reason why Leo is such a favorite to win is because of like what we're joking about, is that he was out there in the elements and he's eating raw bear, fish, and he's doing all of this to his body just for the sake of the performance? Whereas Michael Fassbender was phenomenal with Steve Jobs, but he shows up, puts on a turtleneck versus a guy who has to fight a bear
Talks in
for
a different
week.
voice.
Yeah.
Well, he is trying to manage a Sorkin script. That's really hard,
Yeah, that is not
Right,
easy.
right,
That is
right.
not easy. But it's all about, all of that becomes irrelevant, though, if what the actor is putting himself through or actress puts herself through does not translate into the performance. What Leonardo DiCaprio did to himself was translated directly to the performance, and that is why it's a coupling of the two. That's why it stands out so. But again, it's a matter of The Revenant is such a better movie than Jobs that's why I think a lot of the momentum went away from Michael Fassbender. But I think there are a lot of Oscar voters who are going to see past the momentum, see past the fact that Revenant was a better film than Jobs, and just look at the performance. And I think there are going to be a lot of Oscar voters that vote for Michael Fassbender. Look, probably Leo wins. But I'm just telling you, America, do not fall out of your chair in shock or cry snub if they say the name Michael Fassbender, because if he gets it, he earned it. Trust me.
Even though barely anyone saw that movie.
Did you say bear on purpose?
I did.
More bear jokes. North of the North, you are not forgotten.
Well, again, the French black and white film. Once again, The Artist. Nobody
Yeah.
saw The Artist, and it won Best Picture. So I mean, there's precedent.
I think it's a coupling of two things. It is that story of what he went through in the environment, and then it's you talked about this before, the lifetime achievement more. It's like, oh, you haven't won. I personally thought he should have been nominated for Django for supporting actor, but he's been nominated so many times, and everyone wants to have him win. And I think with that plus with what he went through, I think that's going to lead to his win.
Did you see that little meme? I'm sorry. Did you see that little meme online, that open letter from Leonardo DiCaprio's mom to the Academy?
No.
It's like, dear God, my son's going to kill himself at some point. Look what he's making him do. Give him the damn award. It was really funny.
You know what?
Just
If he
look it up.
doesn't win this year, though, then whoever made that like little 8-bit game of him trying to get the Oscar on the red carpet has an entire year to make another one. So that's a win.
What about the one with it has the bear on the red carpet with the Oscar?
I like the one where it's the stick he uses, the walking stick he uses
yeah.
with the Oscar. That one, that's the one that killed me.
Someone should make a coffee table book of all the memes that came out of this situation.
Right.
Well,
I
will
would buy
say this
that.
too. I mean, because I think Leo, this is the story this year: is will Leo finally get his award? And it will be a shame if he doesn't, because I don't know that there's ever been a year that he's deserved it more. Like I think Leonardo DiCaprio may be the number 2 best working actor in Hollywood, right behind Daniel Day-Lewis. And whether he's a working actor or not is up for debate. But Leonardo DiCaprio is at least number 2, right? And I'm the guy who's always said I have no problem with the fact that he hasn't won an Oscar yet, because even though he is consistently over the years the number 1 or number 2 guy, every year he's lost, I always thought the guy who won over him deserved it. This year, though, I don't think he's ever had a better chance to win. I don't think it's like when LeBron goes to the finals, he's got Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Like, now you're set to win. He's got everything to win. If he doesn't win this year, it's hard to imagine him being in a better position moving forward. So for his sake, I hope he
Yeah, I
does.
mean, he's been in a bunch of movies with Martin Scorsese directing as well.
Yes.
And you had Inarritu won Best Picture last year and Best Director as well.
But his guy didn't win Best Lead Actor.
Which I personally,
thought
for
he
me-
should have. I thought Keaton should have won last year.
I thought it was, I think, almost criminal that he didn't win. But anyways, that's a different topic. Now, before we get on to Best Picture, we're going to get Best Director. We
Yeah.
have Adam McKay for The Big Short, George Miller, Mad Max Fury Road, Alejandro Inarritu, The Revenant, Lenny Abramson, Room, Tom McCarthy, Spotlight. Perry, who's your choice for Best Director?
I wouldn't say this is flat out my choice, but I wouldn't mind seeing George Miller steal it. But at the same time, I mean, I think Inarritu for The Revenant deserves it at the same time. But, oh God, I want Mad Max to win. Really, I really want Mad Max to take this. Fine, I'm just going to go with it, but I don't think it's going to happen. And one of the really cool things about him winning back-to-back Oscars is how different The Revenant is from Birdman, though. So I will be really excited
Very
about
much
that.
so, yeah.
And they're shot so differently,
Yeah.
and they're also like both films that require kind of like every film that's ever made requires a group effort, but I feel like those two films in particular never would have worked as well unless everybody was like at 110%, and you need a leader. And I think this just goes to show that he is one heck of a leader who can direct an incredible movie.
John?
It's McCarthy. Absolutely. For me personally, there is no question. This is the most certain I am of any of the categories this year.
Really? In
is
terms of not
McCarthy.
just that he's going to win.
Well, that he should.
Okay, should.
Yeah,
Okay.
more than. But I do think he is going to win. But I will say this though: if earlier in the evening at the Oscars, if they open up the envelope during Best Supporting Actor and they say the name Tom Hardy, take this to the bank. Inarritu wins Best Director, The Revenant wins Best Picture, and Leo wins Best Actor. I'm telling you right now, if Tom Hardy's name gets called, you're going to see an avalanche of The Revenant stuff. If he doesn't get called, that doesn't mean anything negative. But when you look at Spotlight, the kind of story that it is, no, it's not crazy natural light and shooting out in the Alberta wilderness. No, but it's the crafting of the story. And it's the performance he gets out of this really impressive ensemble of actors. And we talked about this when we initially did our review of Spotlight, is the fact that when you look at this story, if you look at the script and look at the story, this is something that for an audience member could have left an audience member 5 steps behind the entire way. Because we've all seen a lot of movies where you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? Who did? McCarthy found a way as the conductor of this orchestra to just beautifully move everything in such a beautiful pace with the right performances. It never felt preachy. It never felt over the top. It always felt raw and emotional from various points of view. The job McCarthy did on this movie, I thought, was just breathtakingly beautiful as a director. All the guys in this category this year, fantastic. But to me, it's McCarthy.
I like the template you're creating for the Oscar ceremony tonight, because I too hope that the Best Supporting Actor category is the one that gets mentioned early in the ceremony.
It's traditionally the first
It's
category.
either that or
Not,
actress.
though.
Not this year?
It's
I'm
either
pretty
supporting
sure
actor or supporting actress.
I'm pretty sure
right?
I saw an email that said one of the screenplay ones are going first this year.
That's interesting.
And it might have been from Variety. I believe this came across in
But
my
one of
inbox.
those should be early on, right? in the ceremony?
I mean,
that's
look,
that's tradition.
You would hope so, because I don't personally get invested in a lot of these awards, but I just want to know if Rocky's going to win one way or the other. As far as the best director race goes, I think that, look, McCarthy made a phenomenal movie in Spotlight, and I don't begrudge him anything. I think it is a two-horse race between Miller and Inarritu, and it's so close that I'm just going to pick Ridley Scott. I don't know who else to take. You know, Miller is somebody who I think is the underdog. I think that it's so hard to say who should win. I think that Inarritu's going to win, okay? But having said that, I'm not going to fall out of my chair with surprise unless the Blueberry Vodka does it if they call Miller's name at the end of the night, because, again, you don't want to necessarily say it's a Lifetime Achievement Award, but it was such a fantastic accomplishment what this guy did making this film. I just think that ever so slightly, I'm going to give the lean in should and will win to Inarritu.
Yeah, I think Inarritu is the favorite to win. I think he's going to win. My personal pick also would be George Miller. I just think what he did with Mad Max, it blew me away, you know? Just, I haven't seen anything like that in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Dark Horse, I think you're right with Tom McCarthy. Like, I think that he has an outside shot of stealing this away from either one of those guys. You know, we're going to talk about Best Picture later. You know, this may be a category where maybe they want to vote for George Miller because there's no chance in hell it's winning Best Picture, right? Mad Max, there's no chance in hell.
Right.
I won't complain if it wins Best Picture.
Yeah.
You won't hear me complaining about it, but I can't imagine it wins Best Picture.
I think whereas a movie like Spotlight or The Revenant,
yeah,
we expect to be a contender for that. You don't expect, which is maybe a reason why they might lean towards a director of a movie that they know is not going to win Best Picture.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on to the last one, Best Picture, the big one. We've got The Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Room, and Spotlight. Perry, let's start with you.
This category stresses me out, man. I want Brooklyn, Room, or Mad Max to win because that was my top 3 of last year. None of them are winning. It's definitely down to Spotlight, The Big Short, and The Revenant, and I think The Revenant is going to take it because, you know, when you factor all of the analytics that they normally pool together between, you know, awards it's already won, box office, and the whole preferential voting system.
Yes.
Because I feel like, you know, maybe Spotlight would get the most #1 votes, but then when you kind of have to shift everything around, The Revenant could end up with more overall because, like, you know, I feel like that one has a better shot of being people's #2 or #3, and with the way this voting works, I mean, statistically, it will probably work out that way.
Mark? Yeah, I mean, look. So you said, Mark. Well, let me throw. If you think bracketology is complex and trying to figure it out, the preferential ballot stuff, we got to have Chris Tapley on sometime, who's like the best award season guy in the business, to explain that system. But here's an interesting thing before I get to my pick, and I'll pass it off to you first, is that The Big Short, which was not in the conversation really for Best Picture. I mean, it had been nominated, but nobody talked about it. Just recently won the Producers Guild for Best Picture. Mm-hmm. The Producers Guild Awards is the only other major awards that uses the preferential ballot the way the Oscars does. Just something to keep in mind. Sorry,
That's
Mark.
right. No, you're right. And Chris Tapley is to the Oscars what Joe Lenardi is to college basketball. Yeah. The one guy that can figure out all this madness and know who's probably going to win. I think it is between The Revenant and Spotlight. As much as I enjoyed all these movies, and where the hell's Star Wars? I think it's going to be Spotlight. I think Spotlight takes it. And in a year where I really think The Martian should be a dark horse, I don't think that The Martian has any chance in hell simply because Ridley Scott wasn't nominated for Best Director. Now, look, yes. I know the Argo situation. I know that Affleck got snubbed and then that movie ended up winning. I just don't see that happening again, even though The Martian is just it's a movie that I think can appeal to everybody. As much as I love Spotlight and The Revenant, you could sit any human being down in front of The Martian, and I think they would at least be able to get something out of it. And that's an achievement in a film as far as I'm concerned. Is it going to carry it all the way to a Best Picture? I don't think so. I'm going Spotlight, a worthy victor to the crown.
I personally would be happy with Mad Max winning, The Revenant winning, or Spotlight winning. But I think because of what you're saying, I think The Revenant's going to win. I think it's one of those movies where it's like maybe not everyone's #1, but because everyone's so divided over the rest of them that it's going to numerically, statistically come out on top. It's strange. I don't know, but I wouldn't be disappointed if it wins.
But do you guys think that because like is Best Director and who gets that statue, is that going to determine how we feel going into Best Picture? Like, for example, if let's say that McCarthy wins Best Director for Spotlight, is that maybe they gave him that award because they like that movie and now we're going to reward The Revenant with the big prize, or vice versa? Do you think that factors into it, or do you think that the winner, the director, is also going to be the Best Picture winner?
I think year to year, there are different flows, right? I feel like this year is the kind of flow where, like, remember I said earlier, if Tom Hardy gets that award earlier, I think you're going to see a Revenant.
The momentum flow.
Yeah. I think what we're going to find out when they announce Best Director, we're going to find out what was the Academy really looking for this year. If they announce Tom McCarthy, 100% guarantee Spotlight's going to, I think this particular, not every year, but this particular year, I think that will give us some insight into what the mindset of the Oscar voters were this year, and I think you're going to see it. If Alejandro wins, you're going to see The Revenant match. Here's the thing. My pick, I mentioned earlier. My pick is Spotlight. I believe it should win. I believe it will win. But the funny thing is, there are a lot of years that go when I think, well, getting close to the end of the year, this wasn't that great of a year in film. And then I sit down and I look at the Oscar nominated list. And then I go, screw that. Look at these movies. These movies are amazing. And this was really, truly a great year in film. I think there are 4 films that have a legitimate shot. I think it's Spotlight, The Revenant, I think it's The Big Short, and I do believe Mad Max has a shot, but I believe it's on the outside. And again, I never would have said The Big Short until it won that damn PGA, and now I just don't know what the hell is going on. But I do think it's going to be either Spotlight or The Revenant, and I'm going to stick with Spotlight.
It's so hard to figure it out
It
because,
is.
like, what it comes down to is that we are all human beings with feelings. So it's like, even though you're supposed to assess something for, Best Director, the directing in it, it's hard not to consider everything that's happening around it and everything else you voted for. I mean, that's the exact kind of situation we're in where, someone could say, all right, I'll vote for that movie here, but not here. And, maybe that's not the way it's supposed to go, but, we're all humans. And another thing that I was reading about today is just the feeling that a movie leaves you with after.
Yes.
And the fact that, in particular, The Revenant, and I think The Big Short's great. That's not my kind of movie or subject matter at all, where I wouldn't understand anything that's happening in that movie, but I think the way he directed it kind of spoke to me in a way that I could understand just enough to get the movie, but at the same time, I could go back after and learn more from it. But in particular with The Revenant, the way that movie puts you in Leo's character's shoes, something about that makes you feel like you're going through what he's feeling. And I think that in particular is what's really going to grab people.
With what you were talking about earlier about is the director an indicator for Best Picture, I think John's right. In every year, it differs, but I think in this year particularly, I don't think it does. I think Spotlight itself has a better chance of winning Best Picture than Tom McCarthy has at winning Best Director. I think they might go with a name for Best Director. That's why I think George Miller does have a shot. I still think Inarritu is going to win that, but I think he does have a shot where they would vote for him, but they're not going to vote for Mad Max for Best Picture. I mean, in years past, I know Ang Lee, he's won 2 Oscars for Best Director. Neither one of his films won Best Picture.
Yeah, and it's funny, I thought last year was different. I thought last year when they announced Alejandro, I didn't think Birdman was going to win, but I was cheering for Birdman to win, but I didn't think it would, and it ended up working out that way. So you're right. I mean, it's really hard to tell.
All right, guys. So that's it for our Oscars discussion. Do you guys have any last words before we get into this award ceremony?
This is my second favorite day of the year. There's Christmas and there's Oscar Day. I love the Oscars so much. I know there's some people, who cares, just awards? Shut up. I love the Oscars. I love that it is the one year that the industry comes together to celebrate the year that was in film, to recognize excellence. We were just talking about the Best Picture nominees, and it really makes you reflect on how many damn good movies there were this year. I'm giddy at Oscar time. I always am. I cannot wait for the show to start, and I cannot wait for us to get together and talk a little bit about it after the show's done.
Where can people find you, John?
Guys can find me on Facebook and on Twitter at John Campia, and you can find me on Amazon right now. Just check out my book, The Pride. It is on there right now. Go and check it out.
Mark?
I was flying into LA this morning, and I try to downplay my excitement for the Oscars. I know it's Hollywood Super Bowl, and we're really excited for it. And I'm like, yeah, we're just giving out a bunch of statues for people who are make-believing stuff. And then I saw the Goodyear blimp out of the window when the plane was landing, and I was like, okay, I'm a little excited for this thing now. And particularly, I love the awards. I'm rooting for Stallone big time, but seeing Chris Rock, my favorite comedian, when I was a kid, he's the guy I most wanted to be like. Seeing him on stage telling jokes that are going to offend some people, what you're going to get tonight, I guarantee it. You're going to get a lot lot of laughs with this monologue. You're going to get some, people are going to be on edge. But I think watching his set earlier in the week, he has enough fastball comeback pitches to win the crowd back. With Leo material, with Rocky material, with Jennifer Lawrence jokes, I think that Chris Rock is going to do better than what he did the last time he hosted the Oscars, and he's going to absolutely crush the monologue tonight.
I agree.
And where can people find you?
At Mark Ellis Live. That's it.
And Perry?
Halloween Oscars. That's definitely my thing. And I managed to squeeze Jacob Tremblay's name into this episode, so I am a very happy person right now, regardless of what happens tonight. You can catch me at PNemroff on Twitter and Instagram.
Bone Studios 15 in the chat room says Gods of Egypt for Best Picture of the Year.
Oh, 2016, you damn right.
I'm super excited. Just make sure, follow us on Instagram, Collider Video. We're going to be taking pictures of us eating and drinking and having fun.
And video.
And videos in between the commercial breaks, just telling us what we thought of who won. And we're also going to do a post show. Actually, people are asking, where's Christian? Where's Schnepp? They are coming. They have other stuff that they're doing. Actually, Christian is on the red carpet right now, right?
As soon as I landed, I called him, and he's like, you know where I am? I'm like, no. He's like, dude, I'm already on the red carpet. And I'm like, oh, sorry, Your Highness. Have fun.
Yeah, he's covering for Fandango. He's covering so he'll be here later tonight.
Yes, Christian and Schnepp will be coming here later. We'll be on the post show. As soon as it's done, give us like 10 or 15 minutes to get ready. We'll do our show. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in, I guess, in a few hours. Yeah.
Hey guys, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help you stay up to date with everything we've got going on here at Collider.